said, the whole point of this session, we're going to go through from basically before we even get to the pitch and what we're set up to, right? What we're doing before we get in the pitch, immediately before the pitch, and then on the pitch. So I think it's important to understand what umpires do. And I think sometimes we forget as umpires what we do. And I've heard of people say before, oh, you don't have a game if you don't have umpires. Well, actually, the game would exist if you don't have umpires. It just wouldn't exist it just exists in a very different manner. So what do umpires do? And this is from the FAA's briefing in many ways. We're here to support the game. We're here to make sure that we support what's happening on the pitch. We're here to support your fellow umpire, help them and help them make the best decisions, make sure we get the right decisions on the pitch. And we're here to support the teams, make sure that they facilitate an environment where they can show off their skills, where they can play the best that they can play, and where they have fun. But if you notice, there's one key word through all that, and that's to support. We're here to support hockey. We're not here to be the centre of attention. We're here to support hockey. And our main facilitation is, as it says on the right-hand side there, to ensure the game is played safely and fairly. If we have a safely and fair game, that's the first and most important part of umpiring. After that, everything else becomes an added extra, but we need to make sure the game is played safely and fairly, and we do that by supporting everybody. And one of the key things I want people to think about here is when I say teams, I don't just mean players. Teams at the very top level will have doctors, physios, managers, coaches. As you go down, it'll become just managers and coaches. You go further down, it becomes coaches. Sometimes then further down, it's not even coaches, it's just captains, etc. on the sidelines. But teams means everybody involved in that game at that time. So just think about that as we go along. Yeah, the game can't happen without us, but actually we're here to support the game. And that's a key thing, what we need to think about what we're doing. And I've put here, I suppose, 5 season aims. It should be for all umpires. Think about what you want for your season, what you want to do from your season. And I've put 5 here together, and I think these are 5 good ones, but you might have some that are slightly different for yourself. Each person's in a different part of their umpiring journey. But I think these are good five good places to start with. And for me, the number one thing is respect the teams and each other. You need to respect the teams. And as I said earlier on, that's managers, coaches, players. And if you give them respect, eventually they will give you respect back. And that's a key element to facilitating a presentation and a product on the pitch. If you have the respect, everything else can go from that. Now, you've got to earn respect. So how do we earn respect? Sorry, apologies. Each other as well. Don't go, somebody make a horrendous decision. Don't say, oh, such and such made a horrendous decision in the previous game. Respect, oh, that person may be under pressure, saw it slightly differently. This is how it goes. But key to everything we do as an umpire should be respect teams in each other. And they say, how do we do that? Well, I've put through 4 kind of areas there, which we're looking at, and one is consistency over all matches for both decisions and penalties. And when I say over all matches, I mean from day 1 of your league season to weekend 20 of your league season. If it's been a green card and a short corner or a penalty flick on day 1, it's a green card or a short corner and a penalty flick on week 20. Make sure it's consistent. Don't start pulling your own personal interpretations out of things. Don't start pulling, oh, this game's going completely wrong, I've got to do something different. Be consistent, because the players will then know what's happening. The managers, coaches will know what's happening, and they can work on from that. Work with your colleague. Have your pre-match chat. Understand what they want. Understand the problems they face. Where do they need support? Have a chat with them. Oh, yeah, I need support down the line, or in the centre of the pitch. Can you just wait to let me blow? So have that conversation. Work together as a team to make sure that your decisions are consistent. For some reason, this has got in the wrong order, but anyway, all this will lead to high quality decisions with accuracy. Being in the right position, working with your colleagues, knowing week in, week out. So players talk about muscle memory. Well, it's the same for umpires. It's brain memory. When you see something, oh, I did that this week, I need to do that the next week, or I need to do that now. And so you just continue to have that decision. Make sure they're very high quality decisions. Make sure they're accurate. If we do all of that together, we create an atmosphere. We create an area within the pitch and the pitch confines, which allows the players and the managers and coaches to showcase the skill they have. And that goes back to the respect issues again, because if they respect what you're doing and you respect what they're doing, everything else falls into position. So think about that as an area, and just think about this as overarching season aims. You can have your own aims as an umpire, but just think respect, consistency, working together, and with high quality decisions creates this atmosphere where the product of hockey is shown to be in the best possible manner. And yes, it's not all about what we do off the pitch. It's obviously a lot about what we do on the pitch as well. And the FIH again has said it is very attractive, entertaining hockey, and has given these sort of 4 areas, which are basically skill, flow, possession, tackling, presentation. And by bringing these together, we get this central area of a product of the Scottish hockey being the product in this case, of creating an atmosphere and creating a product which is exciting to watch, which will grow the game. If you look at each of these in a little bit more detail without going into them a great deal for the rest of the presentation, skill. We've mentioned this a few times, and I've mentioned this a few times. Protect skill. Allow them to express themselves. Clamp down hard and know the little accidental foot. Oh yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, did I happen to stand in the way of the ball? Allow the players to facilitate the skill they have. Let them show it. Don't consistently blow the whistle for small offences which are stopping them show their skill, but also clamp down on those. Make sure you see them. Make sure you understand. Make sure you allow the player to do it. Related to that is flow. Think about, actually, has that player got the skill to break the tackle and move on and go into the area and create a nice piece of advantage? Celebrate the advantage rule. I love that phrase. Use it to your advantage. Don't think, oh, I must blow that. Think, well, actually, if I keep my whistle going 3, 4, 5 seconds on line, brilliant. It's gone. We're not talking about rugby advantage here. We're just talking about allowing players and allowing a phase to facilitate what the player can do with the player. You can always bring it back. But also contrary to that is the greatest flow a very quick whistle. Just inside the 23 or just outside the 23, blow the whistle, they're surrounded by players, they're fouled, blow the whistle, and they can just touch the ball and move on. And they've taken 4 players out of the game, and the flow of the game gets excited, and it's exciting again. I should talk about flow and skill, but protect your ball possession and tackling. And this will come on to a little bit more detail. But deliberate actions to break down play, dangerous actions need to be dealt with and considered. Hockey, we appreciate, has got more physical, but being more physical doesn't mean to say it's more dangerous. Protect possession, protect the player, make sure the tackling's fair, make sure you don't have to go through the player to get the ball. That's just nonsense. We can't have that, so protect them. And lastly, the presentation as an umpire, the manner in which we manage the play and work with the players. We've already discussed briefly about working with the players. I'd go say managers and coaches and added onto that there, and how we react with them, how we talk to them. It's a really bad look to have 5 players, 6 players, 7 players coming towards you. And we'll talk about this later on, but coming towards you and crowding you, or having the swearing out loud, for instance. Have empathy with the players. Sometimes mistakes will happen. Understand what they're trying to do, try and facilitate them. So for me, these are the key areas in creating the atmosphere for a really exciting product and a really exciting game. I think this is the first time I'm going to say to everybody, is there any questions, comments at this point? Is there anything there which people think I'm missing or we should be added to or thought about as a key area to creating the sport, that attractive product we're looking for? This area, this sort of hour, half an hour before a game, what should we be doing? What should we be thinking about? And again, just 5 very simple things to do. Look professional. If you've got official umpiring gear, wear it. If you don't have official umpiring gear, wear a pair of black jogging balls, black trousers, and try and match at least the colour of your colleague on the top. I know that isn't always always the case, but try and do it if possible. Be there a minimum of 30 minutes before your match. I think that's an important one. One of the things when I spoke to the coaches, a couple of the coaches suggested that, and managers suggested, you speak to captains before a match, but I can never speak to the managers and coaches. Maybe we should start thinking about bringing that into our pre-match preparations. 30 minutes before the game, when you're there, the coaches are there. Bring the four of you together, have a quick conversation. Anything from previous weeks which you're worried about. This is what we're going to do in this game, and etc. Try and build up a rapport with the players and the teams and the coaches. So then what you do, instead of having just two of you managing a game, you've actually got the sidelines and benches managing the game for you as well. So you're bringing everybody together to make sure that the spectacle's the best. Have a pre-match chat with your colleague. As discussed earlier, make sure you understand who's got what areas of control, what's happening, how you're going to deal with certain issues, how you're going to deal with the breakdown, who's taking the whistle if the play goes towards you, etc., etc. Create a plan A, B, and C if you need to get to D. Some things went dramatically wrong, but understand what plan A is. If plan A isn't working, what's plan B? Plan A might be, allow every flow on the sun. Likely, the players are taking advantage of this and really doing stupid things. So actually, plan B might be, we're going to restrict this for a little while. We're going to give quick whistles, and we're going to bring the game back under control, etc. Plan C. Plan C might be, Plan C might be, actually, we need to deal with the captains here because actually the game's got two fractures. Always go back to plan A at that point after it if everything calms back down again, but have those plans in position so you can react to what's happening in the pitch. And lastly, and I know this sounds very silly, but read the FIH briefing. The rules and guidelines are there. The FIH decide how we're going to blow them, so read it. I just realized I would find here. You can't actually click this, but it's very easy to find on the FIH website. And read the Scottish hockey regulations, although they are slightly more difficult to find. And maybe Colleen can put in the chat exactly where they can be, find a link to them. Sorry, Colleen. last minute addition there. But read them so we know what's going to happen. You're now on the pitch. You're talking. Communication becomes key at this element. 2 ways or 3 ways you communicate as an umpire: whistles, signals, and voice. Right, body language falls under signals. Everything should be really clear to the players. Everything should be as brief as you possibly can to get your point across. But communicate it clearly. Sharp whistles if necessary. Low tone whistles if it's just another foot. Sharp whistles if it's actually, I'm not happy with that, guys. Bring your arm from low to high, open fist, open palm to pointing. So make it clear whether you're happy, where your lines in the sand are, what's going on in the pitch. Don't leave any areas of doubt for the players. That doesn't mean to say you're dictatorial. It means to say you use the tools you have in front of you, which are varying tones, whistles, relaxed body language, annoyed body language, voice. My accent's harsh no matter what I do. I can't deal with that. But lower and raised tones, never. You don't go to shouting, but language of come on, guys, why are you doing that? No, don't do that again. Those little areas again. So players should be clear and brief. We're not here for war and peace. When we have radios, what it says there, enhances communication between umpires. We're increasing accuracy in the pitch. It isn't for singing whatever you want down the radio. Don't say, oh well, I think player A ran into player B and actually then player A did this, and by that stage it's gone. It should be free hit to player A. Simple. Keep it short. Don't give your life story across it. Everybody's on the pitch, ready to blow your whistle, and this is where we start to earn the respect and start to earn our corn, if you want. Before we move on to the next section, I have spoken to players, managers, coaches about the areas to focus on for the next 10 slides in particular. I think these are key areas, and the areas which have produced conflict between maybe the umpires and players, umpires and managers as we go along. But we'll go firstly to the one which is perennial. Every single manager, every single coach, and every single umpire said aerials to discuss aerials. I think as an umpiring cohort, we've tried to complicate this far too much, and actually, what is a very simple rule, and we've tried to complicate it. We've overthought it. We've tried to put in so many different scenarios. If we just keep it as simple as we possibly can, and it's written there on the screen. Players must not approach within 5 minutes from the opponent receiving a falling, raising ball until it's been received, controlled, and is on the ground. And a little bit of extra over the time, the FA8, the ball may be intercepted within 5 meters, but outside of playing distance. That's a key one, provided it's done safely. Key again. So, balls landing, give them 5 meters. You can intercept within 5 meters, but not within playing distance. What is playing distance? I would suggest 1-2 meters max. Can they reach it with their stick without having to stretch out and doing it? Natural playing. We judge it all the time in the pitch, so don't judge it differently as an aerial. And key is, initial receivers are right to the ball. If it's not clear, the initial receiver is, then the player of the team which raises the ball must allow the opponent to receive it. Clear and unequivocal. I think we've tried to complicate this too much, but there are keys to making sure this is done correctly. And so there's a practicality side to it. Early judgment. Decide early who is the first receiver. Is there going to be a contest? If there's going to be a contest, in other words, two players or a player rushing in right beside each other within playing distance, blow early, get rid of the danger element of it. Who will get to the ball first? Keep it simple, but judge it early. And it might be in a part of your pre-match talk with your colleague is, all the aerials which are landing directly opposite you, I'm going to defer to you about who's there in position first, etc., because they might have a better view of it. They'll also have a better view who has 5 meters of space. So where's the ball going to land? If it's 5 meters of space, get on with it. Intercepted ball, as it says earlier on, if it's done safely, get on with the game. Play on. So out with playing distance and safely done. Simple, compact and easy. Don't try and complicate it and go, it's just outside the playing distance. I thought, if he's jumping across the front of the player, if he's jumping from behind him or he's coming through the back of the player, that's not safe. That's not play on. If they're 2 meters away, they're jumping up and taking the ball in the air, they catch it correctly with their stick and it falls down in front of them, that is safe. Play on. It is an intentional breach. So if you do think that it isn't safe, that you do think they've breached the rule, what's the correct penalty? And I think that's a key thing. What's the correct penalty? Again, before I just move on, just to pause on that slide there, because it was such a clear thing which people come up with. Everybody mentioned it. So, as I said, the rule is simple. The practicality is made simpler by having early judgment, looking to see where it's going to go. As soon as the ball is lifted, have a look to see where it's going to land. Over the last 20 meters, it's clear it's going to be a contest. Blow it. If it's not, if it's a safe contest, where they're 2 or 3 meters outside the playing distance, let them get on with it. If the ball lands, who has the 5 meters of space? Have they controlled it? If they've miscontrolled and it's bad skill, let the player, defender, or attacker come in to tackle them. But if they've controlled it, give them the 5 meters of space. And I'd say intercept the ball if safe. Move on.
Neil, it's John Hearn here.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I just
back, yep.
I've had quite a lot of success through the summer, coaching within Europe, because this is such a hot topic, and it's a hot topic right across every single level of hockey. And what I'm encouraging umpires to do is as soon as the ball leaves a player's stick, the majority of umpires just watch the ball. They look at the ball. As soon as the ball leaves the stick, you have to then horizon scan. most of the players in the kind of top levels will have a fair level of skill, and they'll be aiming for a player. So as soon as the ball comes up, you're not looking at the ball at all. You're actually looking forward to where the ball's likely to land. And as soon as you're looking there, then that's when you make your decision as to whether it's a player standing on their own or whether there's a player coming in to encroach. It's so important you actually practice that skill. Horizon scan, I can't emphasize that enough.
But that last few minutes is to get everybody to think, to simplify it, and reduce the grey area. Blow it the same week in, week out. Talk to players before, talk to coaches, managers, your colleagues beforehand. Make sure we're consistently doing it, but keep it simple. And John and Monty there, give us key skills, pre-scanning, same as players pre-scan. Look at the different areas of the pitch, and you saw that in the first example of the umpire looking at the ball, and then actually as soon as the ball went up, he looked at where they're going to land. So practice all those and get them ingrained in your memory. We're going to go on to another one, which was brought up by both by umpires and coaches. Interestingly, none of the players did this, but it's crowding player behaviour. There's a couple of things here. Poor player behaviour is a poor spectacle, is poor for the game, so don't accept it. Just don't accept that. The FIH believes active outbursts and misconduct are not good for our sport. Remember the impact this has on the game, the spectacle, and your ability to manage the game. That can be thumping a stick, it can be a scream, it can be a shout, it can be a snidey, snarky comment, it can be anything. It could be actions of of managers throwing their hands up in the air. It could be a lot of it. And I think one thing which has kind of been forgotten, and Colleen reminded me about this over the years, is that Scottish hockey is a Clean Air Act. And we should be enforcing that. Now, that doesn't mean to say if somebody happens to get absolutely thumped in their hand that you should be sending them off. Think about it, have empathy. But if as soon as they swear at somebody, as soon as they, it is screamed at the top of their voice across it, enforce it, do something about it. Have a word. If it's worthy of a green card, if it's aimed at something, or a yellow card, if it's worse than that, or if it's really bad, red. Think about that, but enforce it. But for me, on top of that, one of the things, about to hear a Hoover going, I'm in the office and the cleaners doing the hoovering, so apologies for that. The crowding of players around umpires are not permitted. One player may approach an umpire and no more, preferably the captain. If more than one player approaches, be proactive, manage the situation. And if a crowd continues to approach, use appropriate penalties. I think it's a really key one, and it's crept back in their game. A couple of seasons ago, we had this basically eradicated, but I think over the last couple of years, it's crept back into their game. Don't accept being crowded. Don't accept it. It is a tactic by the team to try and put you under pressure and to change your decision. Don't accept it. One player, one person, one voice. Think of the penalties used. We'll get on to the penalties later on with this, but think of the penalties which can be used. This is not a good look for our game. Cut it out. Again, coming up, this one was raised by the players mostly, and that's obstruction. And in many ways, over the years, obstruction kind of not really slipped out of our game, but we were blowing less and less the idea of third man umpire. Well, we don't really get that, but actually, it's still a part of the game. And I think key to this is a number of points we're trying to hear. Are the players trying to play the ball? Is there a possibility to play the ball? And you can't obstruct if there's no possibility for the person coming in to tackle to play the ball. If they've got to go through you, you can't obstruct. Are they actively trying to stop the ball being played? Others, are they sticking their leg in front of the ball? Are they sticking their stick over the top of the ball to stop you being able to play the ball? Or the higher levels, but be aware of professional use of the body, both at short corners and on the pitch, to block opponents. And a pet hate of mine, don't allow players to lift their sticks over anybody's head. That is dangerous. It's stupid. It's not part of the game. Just don't allow it. Cut it out early. And this is interesting. So an issue which I thought we had kind of dealt with, but was brought up by the players a lot, was stick obstruction. It is not an obstruction to move a hockey ball. You can bring your stick over the top of the hockey ball to move it from left to right, as in the old-fashioned Indian dribble. It is an obstruct. It is an offence if you move your stick. If the ball's traveling through the line, you move your stick away from the ball towards other players' sticks and try and hit them, etc. Hard to see, only below what you see and what you determine you definitely can see.
It's
Don't
Neil,
guess.
John Hearn here. It's my experience that
Yep.
I think that's the reason this is such a hot topic for the players. We're encouraging our umpires to protect their circle, so we're actually asking them to be further away from the centre of the pitch. And I think marginal fouls like stick obstruction are really difficult to spot from 30, 40 metres away. So I think that's where that's coming from. Make sure you're 100% correct, because I think there's quite a high proportion that are incorrect.
Breakdown. Again, raised by absolutely everybody. And I think it's a key to this. So recognise and manage all breakdowns. This can be on the attacking 23, defending 23, into the circle, outside the circle. It can be obvious grab of a player's shirt, grab a stick, you're tackling from behind to stop the player being able to pass, standing in front of the ball, making sure they can't play the ball at a free hit. But the key thing is, what's the player trying to do? Again, think of the level you're doing. What's the player trying to do? Is it deliberate? Is it to stop an action? And that's key. Cut it out early. It doesn't have to be the massive big breakdown play you see as a player running into 23. There's certain teams who are very, very good at doing very low level breakdowns around the defending 23 to stop attacking situations. That is as bad as the huge goal stopping breakdown. Deal with it early.
Neil, can I just cut here, just in terms of the breakdown play? I think you're absolutely right to point out that it happens all over the pitch, but you normally find it happens in unusual areas when a team are on a full press, because as soon as the player with the ball breaks the press, then it incentivises the team to actually break the play to let them get back on side. So that's what we're talking about. You have to think tactically. When the teams change their tactics, you have to think differently in terms of how you manage breakdown.
Yep. Yeah, it's think of the consequence, what it's doing, and see it might be happening in the left back position. Correctly, that's a key one. The left back will be trying to stop through the left wing, trying to stop the right back going, because that's where it quite often happens. Because that's a key area for players and for teams to break down that side. And it's just, what's the player trying to do? Again, one of the key things we kind of just touched on there is look at the game as a whole. Are they pressing? Are they not pressing? Don't just look at that decision in isolation. Because if you just see a minor foul, you think, no, that's just a minor foul. But actually, if it's the sixth minor foul, identical in an identical spot, well, actually, if it's the third minor foul, an identical spot in the pitch, stopping the identical thing, that's breaking down. It's stopping the game. It's not allowing the skill to be shown, and it goes back to the idea of allow skill. So think about what it's doing. Look at that game as a whole. Be consistent with your penalties. In other words, is it a green card, a yellow card for an attacker doing it on the 23? Is a green or yellow card for a defender doing it on the 23? Don't start pulling weird and wonderful decisions out of the air. Be consistent with it. If it's been a green card elsewhere, are we giving another green card for it? Really? Same offence? So let's bring it up. So let's make sure the team have understood why that green card has been given. Okay, and last one. This is an interesting one. Lots of the coaches mentioned this. Was a breakdown can happen, but a player's got the skill to move on, and it's going. But actually, the umpire's seen the breakdown and it's blowing a really loud whistle, stop the game to give a green card or to give them a chat, telling off. Meanwhile, the defending team has got everybody back in position and all the advantage is just gone. Recognize where it has happened, recognize what's happened. If you don't stop the game just to give that green card there, you can come back to it, think about it, and this is consistent. Every single manager and coach said to me that this is what they faced last season, was that the flow had been interrupted, that the idea of getting the advantage had gone. They would rather have had the advantage than the green card or the chat to the player. but you then need to go back and deal with it. And it goes back to that last phrase at the bottom of the large ring at the bottom. Consistent low-level breakdowns lead to high-level management issues. Deal with it early. Make sure the players understand what you're trying to do. I would try and show videos at this point, but the presentation just collapsed completely on me. So we're not going to be able to show videos. But has anybody any comment at this element? But actually, I'm just going to add one more thing about whether it's considered a breakdown or not. Was the taking of free hits. When you give a free hit, the player standing in front of the ball, or the player walking away with their hands in the air to stop a player doing something. That's a type of breakdown. It's stopping the game going on. Manage that early. Get it out of the game. If you think it's deliberate, use your appropriate penalty. Anything? Okay, we'll move on. And this is kind of the last sections here. The various penalties we have, and we'll start with the green card. But again, interestingly, having chatted to a number of both players and coaches in particular, they felt that the green card was almost being given far too quickly, that we hadn't gone through a control ladder before we get to the green card. We talked about this earlier on, about body language, about empathy with players, about how we present ourselves. We have a series of things we can do before we have to get to this green card. We have the whistle, loud whistle, low whistle for minor offences. We have the shout, oh, come on, guys, that's not acceptable. We have the whole gamut of things we can use before we get to the green card. Use them. Your first, unless it's an obvious green card, your first point of call isn't necessarily a green card, unless it's an obvious green card, And these are some of the kind of things I would expect to see a green card for: playing the ball after the whistle, interference in 5 meters, just talked about, low impact within the midfield area, maybe if it's slightly different, if it's just the edge of the circle, etc. Off the ball minor stuff, pushing, holding of free hits, breakdown of play, low impact, talked about that. Where is it in the pitch? What are they trying to do? Well, actually, it's got very little impact that pitch, but it's still deliberate. We need to break it down. We don't use the stop clock, so that's not necessarily. And we talked about criticising or crowding the umpire later on at a very minor level, especially at many games. You'll get a little snarky comment. No swearing, nothing else, but it's just there to undermine you. You'll actually deal with it. Talked about the crowding earlier on. One person, second person, use the green card. You've warned them. One person, guys. Second person comes, guys, step away, otherwise I'll have to deal with it. If they continue to come, you've got this in your armory. And I think key to all of this is we didn't have the green card a few years ago, and actually we used to do this by our body language. This is to say, the green card is there to absolutely, what we used to say, mark a line in the sand. This is absolutely mark a line in the sand. Players know that if they now cross this, we're into card territory. But think about how we get to the green card. Think about how we get to what's happened beforehand. 5-minute yellow cards. Playing the ball after whistle with high impact and player repeated offences. Again, we've talked about that. Standing for the ball. You see it so many often. The players stand from the ball. Oh, you can't get out of the way, umpire. Or the whistle's gone and they play on and continue to run the ball 4 or 5 meters away. Deal with it. Don't let that go. If it's repeatedly happened, give them a yellow card. It breaks down the flow. It creates a spectacle. So it's not acceptable. Breakdown of play when it's not physical. Use of feet, back of stick, etc. Look at that there. Physical fouls with body or stick, including off the ball instance. I'm going to suggest this is in the FIH briefing. I'm going to suggest that's probably for me would be starting to move into 10-minute yellow card, but maybe for a minor one, like a little push or a shoulder to shoulder, which just went wrong, etc. We can look at the 5 minutes. And as I said earlier on, you've given a green card. Are we going to give a second, third, fourth green card? No, we're not. Players need to get the idea that we've got a green card. It's the same offence. It's the same thing that's happening. We're not accepting that, guys. It's a 5-minute yellow. 10-minute yellows, high impact, deliberate breakdown. I think the key for me is this: there's no regard to player safety. You've went through the back of a player, you've chopped their stick, you've grasped their stick and pulled it away from them, whatever. Physical fouls. You go off your feet, you slide tackle, that's a yellow card, guys. That's deliberate and dangerous. And this is the same for attackers and defenders. So the attacker sliding head first into to deflect the ball on the top of the goal, like he takes out defender in the way. I'm sorry, as a free out, and you've got yourself a 10-minute yellow. So think about it. It's physical. If you go to ground or you do anything which physically endangers a player, it's a 10-minute yellow. And again, it goes back to the same principle for the green, moving up to yellow, repeated technical yellow card offences, repeatedly doing the same thing. You just don't keep giving the 5-minute yellow. You just don't keep on going. You go to a 10-minute yellow. Technical points which came up from the speaking to the players, etc. Just some thought points for people to take away. We've talked about these all the way through it. I think the bottom one, there's use common sense, understand the player's intention. But let's get on to this. Protect skill, eliminate dangerous tackles, enhance player safety. And again, what I said earlier on, different in the game becoming more physical versus physical play, eliminating skill. The game is getting more physical, there is more body contact, and to a certain extent we accept that. As soon as it becomes one-sided, or since it oversteps the mark, it becomes physical play and stops somebody playing, shoulder barging them off or leading into them so far that they've pushed them off the ball, then that's become physical play rather than being physical. Flow, common sense approach, free hit management we've talked about earlier on, breaking down of play, understanding it, whistle timing is very important. Sometimes a quick whistle's better, sometimes letting them have the advantage is better. The middle ground is probably the worst area where you've said, oh yeah, I'll let them play on. Oh no, they really don't have it, and they bring it back. So, whistle timing to use to promote flow. And again, possession tackling, where is legal, where are they trying to stop players playing the ball? Distinction between pure versus deliberate actions need to be dealt with the correct penalty. And again, recognize skill, but also recognize pure skill and don't reward it. And hopefully, the outcome, didn't want to have Radiohead playing at this point. There's no surprises on the pitch. And that's what we're looking for. But I think if we go back, one of the things which we go back, we should be there. We're there to enjoy the game. But if we go back to the first, one of the first things I said about this is support. We're there to support the game. We're there to support the players, there to support the teams to create the best game, to make sure the game is fair and enjoy it. We'll enjoy it more if we have respect from the players, managers, coaches. And also if we have the managers, coaches and players all on our side, we have everybody managing the game and it's a much more enjoyable experience for everybody. And that's my bit. And I suppose at this point, if there's any other general questions, we have managed to keep within the hour and a half. So if anybody has any